Podcast number 2. Hey, what's up, guys? It's Willis, 10 Hit Kid. It's your favorite adventure nerd. We're back with episode 2, podcast 2 of Nerd Talk. I don't know. I don't have a name for it yet. But we're just finishing it. We finished up our last one. Obviously, we're still wearing the same clothes. Episode 2 will be about your basics of world building.
3, 2, 1.
When it comes to world building, there's several ways you can go about it. Let's say you don't have any money or anything. We were kind of talking about that.
What does it take to play a game?
Imagination.
The step one, you gotta enter into it with some amount of imagination, and then a role-playing game can be a one-player game in its own little way. You can tell your own stories, and there's a few systems out there that you can storytell your way as a single player through it.
Mm-hmm.
But typically it's 2 or more players, where one person takes the role of narrator and world builder.
Mm-hmm.
And the second player takes the part of an actor and a force within the world. So a player and a DM need to come at it with some amount of imagination.
What are the basics? What do you need, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pencil, paper. You don't necessarily need that.
You need to record your stats in some way. So I think that's probably a better place to start than world building is. What is role playing? In my mind, it's a shared story. It's a consensual reality where the people involved come up with the rules, and it's all this consensual act of imagination.
Mm-hmm. And in the last podcast, you talked about the pact. There really is you just kind of an imagination pact. You just come to terms with I could lie about my role, but that's not what we're here for.
Right?
So you got to trust the other guy
is
tell the truth on his roles,
because
and what he has on his sheet, his stats, skills.
Yeah.
Feats.
In reality, the game might not make sense because there's an infinite power imbalance between 2 theoretical players. The DM could go, okay, well, you think you win, a dragon lands and squishes you, and that's it. Then that's the end of the game. But in that pact, there's trust built between the DM and the player, where you're trying to tell a story, but it has to fit with what the players want, and then what story the DM's trying to get out.
Yeah.
Now, the great thing about the game is an early lesson is, as a DM, you learn that your best laid plans sometimes just won't work. They won't come off, because by having the player involved and consensually working through and building this world cooperatively, there's rules put in place, and both the player and the DM agree that we're going to use this system or that system, and that system is what keeps the rules fair. And
so one of the things that you need for role playing is honor.
You do
in the real world, right?
Yeah,
because
that may be.
Yeah, so there's a lot more to it than just a pencil and paper. I get it, but on a basic level, right? Like we were talking right before the camera started. You could go buy a book, do the research, figure out which system you want to buy. I would suggest, if you're gonna buy a book, research figure out which world you want to get into, because there's endless amounts nowadays of games that you can play. So with that said, you
All
can
of
get a
them good
book.
in their own way.
You can, like we said, you can start from very basic, like coming up with the basic attributes, mind, body, and spirit, right? And then we broke down the spirit into courage,
Magic and courage.
magic and courage.
So
So then you can build from there if you're wanting to build your own world.
We were spitballing what a system could be, because you don't have to buy any of the books really, because it's all an imagination game, and what you're trying to do is mimic the whatever's going on here, and there are as few or as many attributes theoretically as you want. You know, you could have strength, but you could also have brawn. You could also have physical stamina. You could have physical intelligence. Any number of attributes you can pull
stamina
from.
Stamina could be mental and physical. You could have stamina and just like it's 2 parts.
So you're limited by your imagination on what goes on in the character sheet, and the character sheet just dictates how the player interacts with the world. Yeah. And therein lies that difference between role play, where you're playing a role, and role play where you're rolling dice. And
let's talk dice. Different worlds have different dice, right? D&D is a
D20,
and then
Warhammer's percentiles.
Sebastian just kind of whatever he sees.
Yeah. Well, all of the dice in a dice set have a use in Dungeons and Dragons. So percentiles give you 1 to 100. A D20 gives you 1 to 20. 10, 8, 6 is Monopoly dice. And then there's a little pyramid-looking dice that is a D4. So dice, D stands for dice. In Dungeons and Dragons, there's a use for all of them. I think Warhammer uses percentiles and D6s, and sometimes has you use a D3, which is just a half of a D6. Okay. I've played games where we've used numbers written on pieces of paper. Yeah.
If you need a D20, you just randomly select out of 20.
Yeah, you just use what you need to use.
Or 0.
Dice are the best, and physical dice are the best.
Yeah, you could have a digital dice. They have digital dice. They're kind of wonky.
Digital dice are
You know, I watched a documentary about the algorithm of randomized dice rolls.
There's no random in a computer.
It's not random, but what they use is the walking of ants. The trail, like if you watch an ant, they are so meticulous on covering every bit of real estate because they're trying to find stuff. They don't really have like sniffer, right? So they do a really random walking pattern. And all these ants go out, random walking pattern. And so they somehow videotaped the ants walking patterns multiple times, thousands of videos of these ants walking to find the sugar that they put around the outside of the board, and then they use that somehow turned it into math, and that's and that's how they were coming up with some of these algorithms for stuff.
I could see
for like randomizers.
I can see that
because it's so random. Ants walk so randomly. Apparently,
chaos theory is a whole school of mathematics that finds patterns in random actions. But I find that whatever's really
digital dice aren't good.
Digital dice are. I just don't think they roll the same. There's something to the rolling dice. I think even over Roll20, if you roll on camera. That's
another Roll20.
But should you have to roll on camera?
Roll20 is another.
If you've developed a good
right.
Yeah, Roll20 is another
good
website.
Source.
Yeah.
Because do they have character sheets on it too?
They have a lot of resources.
Yeah, there's a lot of resources.
There's pay resources and.
So shout out to Roll20. We used it when I was living in Colorado.
Yeah.
It's a video face-to-face, like Zoom almost, but they have a comment section and then a dice randomizer. And then you can watch you have a playback of all the rolls.
And then plenty of resources to take notes and show pictures and share different things.
Oh yeah, and then you can set up like a character page outside of the game, and it tells about you.
It worked really well.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, so along the same lines of what you need to game.
Yeah. Yeah, 2 people and a telephone.
And we could do that exercise that we were just doing. You're at the corner of Strasmoth.
Yeah, so sort of leading into world
That's what
building.
you were saying. You could look at it from an outer perspective if
Now
you
that-
wanted to start out here instead of starting at the attributes.
Yeah. Now that you've got your rule system, whatever you're going to use. If you've made it up, then awesome. If you're using somebody else, then awesome. I've got my favorite systems. So once you have your system selected, then you're going to have a player and a DM. The player really should try and come up with an idea of a little bit of what they want to play, and use all the sci-fi or fantasy tropes that you need to get your game running. All of the role-playing games are full of them, and that's I think that's the great thing about them. It's accessible.
Yeah.
So in all the popular media, so none of it's mysterious.
Yeah, you always have the games where you're taking, like even my Martin Blank guy. It's from the Martin Blank from Grosse Pointe Blank.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing.
You're taking stuff from other stuff.
Say what you know.
Yeah.
That makes for the best characters, and so a player just coming in with that much of an idea is really all that you need to start. And then for a DM, you have to, in some way, think about peripheral non-player characters that would be orbiting the player or players of your game. And then stuck into that is world building. And there were 2 ways to do world building, which is an outside-in view where you start with planets and moons and time, how do calendars work, or you start at the inside out.
Yeah,
is that what I'm
inside
looking
out.
for?
Yeah. Start from the corner of.
You start on the corner of 3rd and Spellmoth.
Real quick, a moment ago you said, like when you were describing what a player should come into the game with and what a DM should come into the game with, this time you've explained it with more words and more verbiage. Before, when you said it to me, I think it might have explained it the best. You said the DM has to be willing to answer questions. The player has to come in ready to ask the questions.
That's right.
You said players need to need to come in ready to ask questions. DM needs to answer the questions.
Yeah, I did.
And so I think that's a really good way to describe a player DM relationship, because it shouldn't all be on the DM.
No, that's true.
Right. It's like I have an idea of what I want, and you better put it in, or else you just won't have a say. Which that's never fun. So
there has to be something personal. I mean, something that the player is interested in,
right,
in order to give the game pathos and feeling,
and that's the whole point of the imaginary world, is like, well, I can't chop heads off, I can't go fight demons, I can't shoot fireballs out of my hand, so that's why I want to play these games.
I can't avenge my slain father across the countryside and find myself at 3rd and Spellmoth.
So now I appear here. I'm on 3rd and Spellmoth. What do I see?
As you look up, you see a thin sliver of a moon sitting like a smile, low on the horizon, down the avenue of Spellmoth. The houses pile on top of themselves.
Is it city? Is it the city, like businesses, or is it apartments?
The houses pile on top of themselves, built on generations of families living in collective family domicile.
So they just build, like
they build
their
further
children
stories.
build on this house,
Mm-hmm.
build the next story up. Their children build up. That's pretty cool. That's cool. And then the oldest generation lives at the bottom, so they don't walk upstairs.
And since we're starting from the smallest going out, we're sort of maybe inferring this whole process.
Mm-hmm.
It's maybe that's a cultural thing that we could lean on a little bit more to build the city out. We could think a little bit about, well, if you take a left on 3rd
mm-hmm.
and you start heading north.
Yeah, because we know Spellmoth,
or
we're
east.
looking at the moon.
Yeah.
So the moons must be in the south.
So in the east.
In the east.
Or the west, yeah.
Yeah.
And so you turn north on 3rd, and
east. We're going north on
you
3rd.
Can build out the world and describe maybe this is the height of culture, and it gets a little more shabby. Maybe it's a uniform culture, and you see this in shops at the bottom and
mm-hmm.
self-sustaining neighborhoods. Why not go with the caste system? So the culture stays in this communal family style, and the buildings though become nicer and taller and less piled and more constructed.
Okay, yeah.
Topmost floor of some of the
actual siding, and
lower end city is poles and carpets.
Okay,
temporary construction.
Yeah. Tarps. Perhaps.
But that begs the question, then, if we're imagining from the inside out, so that gives us a ruling class, mm-hmm. and you really kind of have to consider that. What do you do as a DM if you hadn't considered that?
Yeah.
Mostly, I think the easiest thing for a player to get across, no matter what their imagination style is, something that you draw from real life.
Yeah.
And so we kind of, through whatever history class or geography class, we can easily find Google pictures or various things to show somebody if we need to.
Mm-hmm.
But if we draw from the real world, then that, I think, translates easier. Neil Stevenson wrote a book called Anathem, and in the prologue to that book he talks about, I'm going to paraphrase because he's a great author, and I don't have it to quote. So he says, in a way, I'm going to use the word carrot and potato in this book, but I don't mean carrots and potatoes.
Yeah.
They're just an orange tubery thing. So in this experience of this book I'm going to write, kind of keep this open mind that I've got to use a language that you understand.
Okay, yeah.
And then he tells a really trippy story, and I read it twice back to back. It was that good.
Yeah. Okay, so now we've built the world. We're in it. We're living in it now. Is there anything else?
Well, as a DM, I would look to a player and say, well, here we are. I've kind of described this walk you've had, but mm-hmm. your character comes equipped with goals and a life.
Yeah. And
something that you may figure out as you're developing the character, or just as it occurs during game. Do you have family? What's your social standing?
Okay, yeah. So now we're getting into developing your character more.
And that's
to build out the story.
Yeah.
And fill out your story.
So that's a paired thing that the DM and the player have to kind of do together.
Yeah, because you don't want a player to go crazy.
Yeah.
Just go corporate.
That's a good story.
Yeah.
I think a thing to remember for a player is don't write your ending into your backstory. If you are, Calgad, the destroyer of 10,000 demons, maybe you're just Calgad today.
Yeah.
And you want to destroy demons.
Okay, yeah.
And and someday you will become that destroyer of 10,000 demons.
Right, yeah.
It's really hard for a game to start if you start at this imagined place of superpower, because then there's nowhere for the game to go. And then what's the point?
My favorite part of a game is the low points,
I do
no
too.
XP players.
Yeah.
One of my favorite games was
D&D.
it might have been the first game of Warhammer where I was just the doctor's it would have been Salazar he started out living underneath a carriage, his doctor's carriage. And that was like my favorite part of the game. Cause like, oh yeah, I'm gonna hook up this, cause it's my first room.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a room to a normal person, but I put carpets
the
around the edge.
Stopped and...
Yeah, I have a carpet around it and hang a little hammock from the axles, from axle to axle, and that's my, you know, and it kind of played into my real life, like you were saying, as in my concert days. I go work a concert. Well, and then you put your hammock up underneath the stage.
Oh yeah, that was,
you know, so living underneath the stage during the days.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that, you know. So
yeah,
I don't
pull
know.
from real life.
Yeah, pulling from real life. That's where I always got that idea from, to live under the carriage like that. So, and anyways, yeah, that's the fun part, is the low level. Because once you come in, like you said, Cal God, the destroyer of demons.
Yeah.
Well, he's already done it then.
Yeah.
Right? But if you come in as Cal God,
yeah,
you know, you got something to go do.
You
and
have
the
a
low
goal.
level stuff too, you know, like.
And yeah, and then that
becomes
gives
fun. The destroyer of demon. He's Cal God.
Demon Slayer. Cal God. Demon Slayer.
Yeah, Demon Slayer. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe you can have little pins from Demon Slayer Guild, and then all of a sudden there's a Demon Slayer Guild in the world.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
I don't know. World building is like that. Some people take a whole other view on world building now, and really are meticulous at writing 150 businesses that exist.
Sebastian, yeah,
and Dave, he was good.
Oh, Mock, he was
stellar.
Good. Mocky sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good at art. His scrolling dungeon crawls with because he had the rolled up paper that he just made look like a scroll, and then he would just pull out some, and then as you went through it, just unwind it. That was good. But yeah, so art supplies, other things that you need for games is stuff like that.
You've got to visualize and.
I think outside resource, if you bring in outside resource from the modules and stuff, those are good. Some of the modules that they've made for these games are real good. So, and I want to touch base on that real quick, because we just played a module that a lot of people don't get to the end of. Oh. So another thing you need is a really solid crew of people. Right, to finish these long games. Yeah. That feeds into it.
And just keep telling your story.
Just keep going. Yeah. Yeah. The modules help too. A lot. What do we just get done playing? Death on the Reich. We
just got done playing Something Rotten in Kislev.
That's the end of the. How many books was it?
I'll set this down. I was gonna.
Oh,
Death on the Reich, halfway through. 7 books, 6 books.
7 books. So that's pretty big. That's huge. That's an accomplishment, I think. Yeah.
Well, we were talking about writing stuff down and the need to at some level visualize the world as far as the character can see it. I don't think there's a need to come up with a whole world if you're just starting out. Sometimes it's fun, and the thing that I did for the long running game was I started with the idea of a globe, and using latitude and longitude, and the way that the Mercator distortions happen on a square grid. I transferred what I had in mind for the globe onto a square grid. Then drew out multiple continents and from there, I was able to sort of zoom in. I want to start the adventure on this continent and do this thing. And in the process of drawing up the whole continent came the rivers with, I kind of had an eye to plate tectonics and how the world might have formed over 1 billion years or 3 billion years, with the forces of magic sort of involved too. Yeah, sort of follow the way that the plates move together. And so I developed mountain ranges based on plate subduction zones. Added plains and deserts based on rain shadows, like you get in the Southwest, and everything that I'd sort of learned about geography, I kind of put to just filling in this world with geological features.
We were driving one time through the desert or through the mountains, and you were talking about these giant boulders are all in this piles because it's washed out. But in a fantasy world, a D&D world where you have giants, those piles of boulders are there because that's where they're throwing. They run there when enemies are coming to attack, so they run to their piles of boulders. And that's kind of was a cool way you described. So I always picture different ways of the world getting built as a way it has, because some magic dude's like, dude, we need a mountain here to keep the enemies away. Have our wizards make mountains.
There was a whole continent in that world that was surrounded by magic mountains and stuff. Yeah. The first part of that game, north of the divide, and the second part south of the divide. And why did this whole thing happen? And that was a good game.
That's all I have to say about that.
That's all I have to say about that.
So I think just imagination. Just keep going with your imagination. And the fun thing about, if you are DMing, you were kind of giving them a rundown like how to DM too. If you are DMing and you don't have a good explanation for naturally why this river's here. Well, why would a river be there? Well, because it's magic. The wizard wanted it.
Why is it running uphill? Oh, fuck.
I
forgot you were going uphill.
yeah. The wizard, duh.
It's a wizard. Lives on a hill. Yeah. Now, it can't all be sort of tongue-in-cheek BS like that. So, but some of it can. I mean, some of it...
It just happens
go... I think
otherwise the game just kind of becomes dull too.
Yeah. Characters will take such amazing turns in your world, and you spend a week and a half writing out this whole royal family, or in the case of the Warhammer game, this whole war of ice elementalists and necromancers in the frozen north, and you just sail past it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's a fucking fight there.
Now we're going. Yeah.
Not going.
Or the kids that we had on the boat. Just throw them off.
Sometimes they just don't take the hook, and then they go make friends with the bartender, and you didn't write anything up for the bartender. It doesn't lead into the adventure, but it's part of the player's game.
The bartender says, "Hey, those ice people back there? We need you to go."
That's right. Yeah.
Those kids you threw off the boat.
No, that's called railroading. I think that's kind of a faux pas, is to force the hand of the player. Yeah. Now, running a campaign that has a story arc and all that, sometimes that's just part of running a pre-written campaign. But but playing in a homebrew world.
Well, the good thing about the game that we just finished, Death on the Right, and all the following in the subsequent books, man, they had an ending or a turn for everything. Even things that we just, we'll eat the mushrooms or whatever, and it's they had it. Well, actually, in the book they say if you do that, that book was so well written, and so they just anticipated people's next moves pretty well.
If you ever want to run that game, you have to read every word.
Yeah. As a DM.
Yeah, as a DM, you have to, from beginning to end, kind of like you would a book. And people might go,
I almost feel
kidding.
as playing through it one time.
Yeah.
I almost want to read through them now.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I'd get more of an insight on everything.
Yeah. So you kind of have to read. Yeah.
Then you get to see all the different paths that could have happened too.
Mm-hmm. Those books, they feed you information over 6 or 7 locations in the book. So you know, if you kind of start the game not having read every word on the character sheet, and there's a note on there, it's, you know, you forget, oh, well, this person, whatever,
So the next thing you need as a DM is the willingness to read.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to run...
read and comprehend, too, I think.
Yeah.
Because I'll sometimes read and just not comprehend stuff. Like, oh, well, I don't even know.
I think, though, reading and comprehension are kind of secondary to the whole process. Fundamentally, this comes down to primordial social activity of all humans sitting around a communal area and telling a story. Now, I'm not telling you Homer's story. The people telling Homer's story 100 years or 200 years after Homer weren't really telling Homer's story. They were telling a rendition of it they heard from someone else.
Yeah,
you know? I think it's a completely vocal, oral process. And if you have a way to take in that knowledge of what a storyteller's trying to get across and be able to provide some insight or communication back in whatever form you might choose, you can get this two-way process of this ancestral gift, maybe, of storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I absolutely feel that.
And so we'll retell our mythologies in whichever darn well way we wish, because it's a heritage of humanity, and so
word of mouth.
Yeah, and so I think that at the barest of all things is just the ability to communicate and remember. Now, if you sit and you tell a story night after night, I think parents might know firsthand if you get tired of reading Cinderella, or you get, you know, I told my daughter's story. We had a continuing story, and it was really just me recounting the day. But then there were
putting it as like princess.
Yeah, exactly.
Amidala. Or whatever used.
Dad and daughter, names. What do we do today? Well, we did go to the zoo, and so we saw an elephant. Well, why can't our story kid have an elephant? Well, sure, let's, Now you got an elephant, and so that continues through the rest of the story. You got an elephant and an owl, and well, I really like the wolves, and I learned to talk wolf. Okay, let's talk wolf for a little bit. So, if you do it on a nightly thing, and that's, I think, as a young role player, that's the thing that was afforded me that maybe I was lucky there too, that we would have 8-9 hour game sessions where we would sit we'd sit down at noon, and
the longest we get nowadays is probably 5 hours.
5 hours, and we'd start in the daytime. This is during the summer, I guess, but during school nights, you know, even then
What was your longest game that you've ever played?
16 or 17 hours, I think.
Damn, yeah. That's a lot of butt time. Yeah. You get up, obviously, and do stuff.
Live action role playing, 48 hours.
Oh yeah, what are we talking about?
Live action role playing, legitimately 48 hours.
Yeah. See, that would be almost easier though, because you could walk around.
Each time it's like Vision Con was on, I don't think I slept.
When you run your game, you try to move them around the hotel as much as possible. Or what?
You make landmarks. So at the hotel we were at, they had a waterfall atrium area, and so that was a park. They had a restaurant area that was kind of off limits, but after the restaurant closed, then it was, the seats were just sort of there. Yeah. And it had a seating and so we we'd make little landmarks.
Yeah.
Build a little city inside, and so the players would physically walk.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that may be the only way to manage 100 or so players.
Yeah.
Except, I think Twitch. I think there's a way to do it on Twitch.
Yeah.
To
digitally
run a game.
going back to a digital way.
Yeah.
Where, because like it sounds like the digital dashboard, or the the bulletin board. I mean, not dashboard.
Yeah.
That you were a part of.
Yeah.
24 people were able to play pretty successfully.
Mm-hmm.
So on a Twitch level, you could probably bring it back to running something pretty successfully on Twitch.
Yeah, you don't need a library of generated content if you can just sit there and talk it out.
Mm-hmm.
That's. I think it would be doable, and I think in that way it would bring some engagement to the experience as a live experience.
That'd be something interesting to look into.
I know I could do it. Maybe I'm boasting, but I think
Nah,
I could
dude,
do that.
yeah, that's the whole point. That's my whole point. That's my whole point. This guy, yeah, he's my wizard.
Oh man,
yeah.
It's doable.
Yeah,
and I think there's something there, but
at the amount of time you legit professional. I know there's a lot of people out there
becoming
in your
a
same
thing
shoes
now.
too. Yeah,
it's becoming a thing now. There's all sorts of websites I could rent my time out.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're interested in the game, comment below. We'll talk about rates. No, I don't want to commoditize my imagination. Not in that way.
Not in that way. No.
No. Role playing for me is always I know when I missed a game. I know that as a player and a DM, if I miss a week of playing, I feel like I want to get. I didn't get to imagine.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing, but it's true.
Well, it's a habit now.
Yeah.
You've been doing it once a week at least for, heck, going back to 14, right? And
pretty
except when you're working at Subway.
See, that's right.
And the X Games. That's a habit at that point.
Yeah, it is.
D&D is habit forming.
D&D is habit forming. And
disclaimer.
Yeah, and
role playing games are habit forming.
Yeah, you've really gotta
Yeah, you gotta have a partner who's cool with you leaving every week, right? Well, as us old guys.
Yeah, that's right.
You gotta have a team that's cool to come.
I think just in general, everybody needs their own night, family and whatnot.
Right. Once again, things you need.
Take your night. Yeah.
Things you need to
Holy cow.
Play D&D. Anything else on this list of things that you need as a DM or a player that you can think of? I think you gave us a pretty good rundown of the DM side of things.
Mm-hmm. As a player, I was my favorite thing to do is to really get into the goals of my character.
Mm-hmm.
One tool that was in Warhammer 4th edition is this idea of minor and major goals, and I think that could be added to anything, but it's something that I've always tried to do for my characters.
Yeah. I felt like we had that in one of the games we played.
Yeah, it was Warhammer 4th edition as a way of getting experience. You fulfill these minor and major goals. So it was a pretty good system.
So, with that said, in your own head, set minor goals, major goals. That goes along with coming into the game with your own imagination, things that you want to do on your own, without being directed by the DM. Because the DM shouldn't have to do all the work.
They come in with some questions. Sometimes it's as simple as, what do I see? Sometimes it's as complicated as, okay, I really need to understand the intricacies of the pump house. Yeah. And how do you get into it? Is it between the DM and the character? I think that's part of the experience. Is that
have you ever? I'm sure you've played with all kinds of players. Have you had players that just like you feel like you're just pulling them along the whole. I mean, I'm sure everybody on their off days, you feel like you're pulling them along.
No, I don't think
But
so.
you've never really played with anybody that you're just like, yeah.
I don't have to be that smart because I know that guy.
Okay, yeah. That's funny. That goes along. Yeah, I don't have to run.
Yeah, you don't run
away from that bear. I just have to run faster than that guy. Surround yourself with stupid people, and you'll be smart.
Oh man, no, I think we're fortunate that we've got a lot of really creative and smart people.
Oh man,
So,
yeah, and a lot of them have run games.
Mm-hmm.
When I first came on to playing with you guys, you were actually handing the baton around the table, and I got to run a handful of the dwarf games.
That was a fun game, or a fun sort of way to do it.
Actually, when people wouldn't be ready, I would just run. And I felt like I was pretty good at just getting in and just...
We would do that, wouldn't we? We were just getting ready to be like, okay, well, today you're all carnival folk, and here's sort of a thing that's happening as people would gather. We kind of finished up this little micro story. And
well, like,
like
with the dwarf game, I made us go into the past. Remember that? And then we had like...
Oh, yeah, that was the greatest part about that game is just... If you've
like
ever done shared art where you like paint part of a picture and give it and they paint it and all of a sudden
I remember the game you were talking about. That was, we were gonna fire up micro games before so we could do different little things because you always wanted to do the carnival crew.
Oh yeah, where you trade characters.
But you felt like the carnival crew wouldn't have had a big enough storyline or something, so that's why you wanted to do it micro. Yeah, like micro stories before our actual Thursday game.
Yeah,
little warm up games, and then like you said, then you're not necessarily the bodybuilder every week. You're not necessarily the bearded lady every week.
That's a good game idea. Yeah. To trade character sheets.
I think it's a good idea. I don't remember when we were talking about that.
The cursed circus.
I don't know if we ever got into it or not. But
no, we discussed it as an idea.
Yeah, probably several times.
Yeah,
I love that. I like our crew. We have an amazing group of guys. Like you said, they're all creative. Some of them know the game systems so well. It blows me away. I'm kind of the opposite. I think I just kind of like learn the basics. And then, like, I've been doing it long enough. It's like everything kind of sticks. Like Drew was saying it the other day too, because I was like, man, I've been playing this game for 10 years and I still don't know it. I'm still asking, how much does this hit worth? How many do I roll?
What do I roll? But...
like how many hit points does this thing? Yeah. No, I think I did say that because I hadn't shot my crossbow or something in a long time.
Oh yeah.
And I hadn't played. I was gone for a long time, and so so then it was just the joke. But then, what I was saying is, a couple minutes later, everybody was asking, "Well, how do we do that?" And I was like, "Well, I can't remember what the scenario was, but I was able to give the info on how to do it." So Drew was like, "See, dude, you know how to play, So it's just one of those things." Some sticks with you, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I'll remember saying, I think that's human nature. I don't know. To wrap up this second episode, I think
a way to communicate. If you can, a way to write it all down.
Yeah, a note-taking device of some kind.
Yeah, note-taking.
Attributes. Come up with your attributes in your
imagination. Wait, do we say imagination?
Imagination's number one. Imagination.
Dice. Some way to do a random number, and I think that's the big thing is that not everything numbers out of is guaranteed, and the only time you need to roll is if it's not guaranteed. That. Walking down the road and going left, it doesn't require a roll, but dodging through traffic and hurdling the car before it crushes you probably does. Yeah. But some way to determine, did I do really good? Did I do very poorly? Or did I just sort of mediocre kind of do it?
Yeah, got through.
And there are endless numbers of ways to do this.
Imagination.
So it's your imagination, however you want to handle it.
Yeah.
Use atomic numbers and go by number of moles.
DM, the player needs to come in ready to ask questions. DM needs to come ready to answer questions.
Ask questions. DM, answer questions. And then sometimes,
imagination.
Yeah, sometimes imagination.
No, I think it's a good point. And I know we're making a joke out of it, but it really is.
On a point there, though, in that communication, it isn't always so binary, right? Because sometimes the DM can tell you what's going on and kind of exhaust themselves of words.
Yeah.
And then the only thing left is they go, okay, so what do you do?
Right, yeah. There's also been times when you're just like, as players were like, oh, and you're just like, no.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, like, oh no, we go kill this guy. No, you don't. He's gone.
Yeah.
You guys were sitting there trying to figure out what you want to do. He's gone.
You talked for 3 hours making a plan.
Yeah, he's gone, dude. You missed your chance.
I think that did actually kind of happen once.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, while you guys are all trying to figure it out, he wandered off.
Yeah, there's a few time-sensitive things that happen in most of the third book.
Another thing you need, don't tie yourself so much to your character. Obviously, you're going to naturally become attached to your character, but don't take things so personal when your DM says you get struck for 12 points. Oh, well, that's all of my hit points.
Yeah.
Well, then you use a fate point. But you can't fight for this.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get mad at your DM. It's nothing personal.
Right. Yeah, it's not personal.
You need conflict.
We're all there for fun, right?
Yeah, you need conflict to make a story interesting.
There's no end of RPG horror stories and various things like that. So
storming out. People just storming out.
I've been lucky enough that I don't think I've ever really been.
Well, you're a good enough DM. Situation. You can tell, like, oh man, this guy's really, and you're compassionate, empathetic enough that you're not just gonna keep punching on a dude, because let's be honest, it's a lot of freaking nerds in the world, you know, and us nerds have soft feelers.
That's right. You got me right in the feelers.
Yeah, and
sometimes you do. You go, I took you down to one, and there is that thing inside the DM that you kind of have to weigh out. Okay, does this creature actually go in for the kill and wipe out this character? Now they got to get him rezzed. Gee whiz, we just killed him 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Should you fudge rolls? Yeah, maybe the thing eases up on him, leaves him for dead. I don't know.
It just assumes it's dead.
It's all about enjoyment.
You have a hit point. You're not moving.
No, there's gluttons for punishment, and Gramtastic is one of those.
Yeah, he just goes in for it.
Oh man, just characters drop. Yeah. You're just like, oh, that was spectacular. He's like, I knew I had 5 hit points left, but I went for it.
Full
like,
send.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Full send. Send it.
Yeah. So players need to have a little bit of understanding for
little compassion, little empathy, and that's another thing.
Compassion
is that
players though need to have a little detachment from their characters.
I think it's good to talk to your players ahead of time if you don't already know them well enough.
Sure. Yeah.
Some people won't want to play through a scenario that you've created because, if a parent dies in the story, that can be hard for people. Or, whatever the thing is that somebody just doesn't want to play through. You kind of have to be sensitive as a GM to just go, I don't know, keep true to your story, but ultimately you kind of have to ease off
a little.
And go, okay, well, we're not going to focus on that.
Yeah.
And we'll just...
Well, as a
the
DM,
words were said, you leave it.
If you want to keep running a story, too, you don't want to piss people off.
You don't want to... there's no reason to do that. And so there has to be compassion, trust, and honor. And
I also feel like if you watch a movie and there's a hero in it he's doing all of this amazing stuff, and then you got that one friend. He's like, that wouldn't happen. It's like, well, yeah. Normally it wouldn't happen, but because they're making a movie out of it, you're assuming that this dude did all this stuff, and that's why they're making a movie. That's not because they're making a movie, so they wrote it like this. No, you're assuming that's the storyline. That's why you would follow this guy and his storyline.
There's very few movies of a guy sitting at home doing his taxes.
Yeah.
They might exist. I don't know.
Assume.
An amazing thing happened to this person, and now
and he made all of his roles crit. Yeah. He critted every role,
and
then maybe there's a fudge, and so like with what I was going, maybe there was a mess up. So we'll give him a fudge because it's aligned with the story. Yeah. You know, if he's smashing the whole time, and then all of a sudden it's like he rolled 100 or a 1.
Yeah, now...
So you know which game. And
disastrous
his
fumbles...
sword breaks, so he can't fight now? No.
Yeah. Disastrous fumbles and spectacular crits. I'm not a great fan of those systems.
Yeah.
When you're rolling a D20.
But say that the sword does break.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it broke, but he was able to figure out a way to, turn it around and use the small end instead to get in the eye or whatever. Like there's got to be something extra amazing, even if you have to fudge a roll a little bit.
That would be a cool topic, game system sort of topic, where a point to be made here is in a fight, the fight happens over 6 seconds. Mm-hmm. Each time you roll represents 6 seconds. So you do this 10 times back and forth. That's a whole minute. That doesn't mean in 1 minute, somebody goes, hi-ya, and then you stand around for 2 seconds, somebody goes, hi-ya. Yeah. It's imagine that there's this whole scuffle occurring, and that roll is merely that instance where it's probable you might hit this guy. Mm-hmm. The rest of the time it wasn't probable. And so when you roll the dice, you determine the probability, and it either happens or it doesn't, or you find out which side of that probability line you're on, success or not success.
So you think the DM needs to cater that a little bit, in case you fell on the backside of that?
Well, I think that the rule of cool dominates a lot of things. That you gotta.
What do you mean, rule of cool?
You've got to understand. I feel like there's a trail here with something I was talking about. But you've got to understand that everybody's there to have fun, and nobody really cares if a roll was slightly fudged. Mm-hmm. Just to finish up that other topic.
Yeah.
On the DM side, hell, even on the player side, it's. And
well, yeah, there's definitely times it's like, I missed it by 2. It's ish, you missed it by 2, but you've been doing it for so long. You're in the midst of the battle. You just took that same swing. Chances are, if you're
we also have times in this game where it's just like, okay, we'll make a fellowship roll, and you go, I make it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You go,
or I missed it. Or I missed it. I've said it several times.
No, I don't make that. Yeah,
she wouldn't make that. She wouldn't even probably try to attempt that.
Yeah, that's true.
She's never done that before in her life. Mm-hmm. So there's no way she can do that now for the first time ever.
Yeah.
Just based on a roll. And I get that, okay, the easiest way is to every time a question comes up, roll it. I made the speech. Roll, but I've never made a speech before in front of people, and I just roll it, and then, you made it. Mm-hmm. Well, like, maybe not though, because I've never done it. So what would constitute me to be able to speak? I don't even have public speaking.
Yeah.
So that's where I kind of fall. Like, if I have climb sheer surface or have climb or whatever, it's kind of that same thing. I just know that I climbed it. There's no reason to roll for it.
No reason to roll.
So I think we should wrap this one up.
Yeah, I had a couple of tangents going there.
No, it's cool.
There's many topics to talk about,
Yeah.
and I think systems would be a good topic. How does the fight work, and how does initiative actually work, and how to conceptualize it more than just this mechanical on paper thing.
Right. Yeah.
And there you find the difference between the role player who's rolling dice and the role player who's playing a role. Yeah,
and I think that's what makes you a good DM too.
I think good players make me a good DM.
Okay, yeah, there you go. Yeah. So there you go. Things that you need as a DM, things that you need to play role-playing games, rather, not to be a DM, but things that you need to play a role-playing game is imagination, ask questions, answer questions, take notes. I think we explained it pretty well. We covered a lot of topics. There's no way we're going to be able to 1, 2, 3 bullet point them.
I believe so. Yeah, because we didn't start with bullet points.
No,
So this is two brothers talking.
Yeah.
This is what.
Yeah. But that's what a podcast is, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's good. Yeah. Once again.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's podcast number 2.
Podcast number 2.
All right. 2023. We're doing big things.
Yeah.
Once again, Big Dave Willis, aka Rubik's, aka Source Connect.
AKA Podcast 3, we'll have on new clothes. So.
Hey, yeah, there you go. But anyways, yeah, it's Willis at the 10 Hit Kid. It's your favorite adventure nerd. Yeah. I just want to say, let's get out there and have some fun.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Let's get out there and have some fun.
All right. Here, we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.